Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Food, Wine, and Travel Show, where we go across country and travel the world with members of the International Food, Wine, Travel Writers Association. Let's go. Hey, everybody. It is time to go for a luxury cruise. We're going to be talking about European river cruises with Judi Cohen again. It's great to have her back on the show. We've met her through the International Food, Wine, Travel Writers Association, and we do 3 shows with them every month. And this is the one that she's coming on to tell us about her 2 cruises, European cruises that she's done this summer, one with Uniworld and one with Viking. And I'm telling you, Judi likes to cruise. You're into luxury offbeat experiences and really kind of curated, but you want to go see things in a unique way. And it sounds like these 2 river cruises, which we have article links in the show notes, everyone, that was exactly that.
That's right. That's right. And you know that I've done a lot of river cruising, and a lot of the river cruising I've done is in Asia. Along the Mekong, a lot of the rivers were the Mekong, the upper Mekong as well in Laos, the Irrawaddy in Myanmar, the Brahmaputra River in India, and the St. Lawrence River in Canada, in addition to numerous other small ships. But cruising in Europe is a little bit different. And what I really loved about these 2 that I did was that they were offbeat enough. They took me to places that I otherwise probably would never have gone to. The itineraries were wonderful, and they took us to small towns and cities that, you can drive through Europe. You can go and do a driving trip through Europe, but most likely, me anyway, I would not have ended up in a lot of the places that I went to see. So now I've done river cruises on the Rhine from Switzerland to Germany. And I've done this one with Uniworld was also on the Rhine. It was on the Rhine waterways and canals. And it was from Belgium to Holland during tulip time, which is, of course, a great time to be there. And then the other one was on the Danube River with Viking cruises on the Uller. And that one took us through 5 countries. It was called a Passage to Eastern Europe. And we went through 5 countries: Bulgaria, Romania, Croatia, Serbia, and Hungary. Wow. And it was really quite a wonderful, wonderful experience, both on the ship. I mean, both of these ships are ultra beautiful and comfortable with great food. And I can't say enough good things about the crew. But
that's nice.
But with Viking, I finished in Hungary. 2 places in Hungary. We arrived in Kalocsa, which is the paprika capital, and then we went on to Budapest. My family is from Hungary, and for me, tasting the Hungarian food that my mother, may she rest in peace, used to make for us around the table, and all of the tools she used, and the I don't know, it was the plates that she served on, and the embroidered tapestries, needlework. It all came back. It all flooded back. I don't know whether you've ever experienced that, but all of a sudden something happened to me that was wonderful.
Well, that's what they talk about. We're in the world of regenerative travel and also transformational travel. And transformational is where it really moves you in some way, takes you back to a memory and brings new memories together. And that's what it sounds like. I know you've been on shows with us outside of IFWTWA too, talking about family. Remember during COVID? So we remember we did with the musician. Oh gosh, we were talking, and he was talking about his family having to escape, and that it was just amazing, these stories and how traditions and food can go to another country, right? You move and then you keep on those traditions, and then when you go to that country, it's like, wow, okay, this is my roots. So it's your mom, but it's also reconnecting with your ancestry there, right?
That's right. And I never truly expected it. When I decided to do this Viking cruise, I really never gave it a lot of thought. I knew that we
Mm.
were going to be ending in Hungary, but getting there, arriving there, seeing things, feeling things, smelling things, tasting things, really, it was truly transformational for me.
Mm. That's
Um,
cool.
yeah, brought back a lot of memories of my mother and my
Mm.
father and our family and the foods we eat and what we
Mm.
do. And so going to the restaurants, finding restaurants that serve chicken paprikash for me was just unbelievable. And I found that also on the trip. We went to Antwerp on the other trip with Uniworld cruises. We got to Antwerp, went into the Diamond District and into, I guess it was the Jewish Quarter. And we found a kosher restaurant. And I don't know whether you remember, but my mother owned the first strictly kosher Hungarian restaurant in Toronto, in
Wow.
Canada. And when I went into this restaurant, there were three brothers who owned the restaurant. And I told them that I was fascinated by the foods they had because it was like my mother's kitchen. They proceeded to bring over literally everything that they were serving and
Wow.
stood there while I consumed it. Everything from the matzo ball soup to all of the other dishes. My husband was shocked when I burst into tears.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. No, this is a special thing, and I think it's important to discuss this as being on a cruise. This is a cruising experience, but you do get off into these, communities and villages and towns, cities, and have these experiences because I think we we have to discuss this more about how small ship cruising, river cruising, because you do get to see history go by you and the natural countryside, and it's kind of like train travel on water, but getting off and having these unique experiences, whether or not it's something they set up or you just go, hey, I'm going to go do my own thing, right? So there's
right.
that you can have your own adventure or go on one of theirs, right? And so
Yeah,
I want people to understand that it cruising can still be transformational. It's just a different mode of travel, and it's relaxing and you don't have to drive.
that's right. It is relaxing, and you don't have to drive. Although I like driving. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
just got back from a driving trip in Sicily, which I loved, but
Ooh,
that's different. Okay, that
yeah.
is entirely different. We went to all these small places. It was beautiful. I looked
Oh
out on
man.
the water and I saw all these gorgeous small ships there. The clipper ships were all there. And I said, whoa, isn't this a great place to come by small ship
Mm,
also? But I did enjoy the driving. What the real I think that you form relationships on these small ships. There's
mm-hmm.
so few people on board that by the second day or third day, you know everybody. You recognize
Mm-hmm.
faces. You may not know the names, but when you leave the ship, you go off and you walk with people and you interact with them. And for instance, on Uniworld, also in the Netherlands, we went to an American cemetery, the Netherlands American Cemetery, where there
Oh,
were 8,800 graves. And
oh.
all these soldiers were buried there. And it's the classic photo of the white crosses and the white, they were Magen Davids, like there were Jewish soldiers there
Mm-hmm.
also. And I was with another woman and her brother, and he is in the army. And the two of them, watching the two of them read all of the inscriptions on the graves and looking at the memorials, it was a great experience for me to live that through their eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And then for me, other passengers watched as I said a special prayer over some of the Jewish graves. It's
Mm-hmm.
traditional when you go to a Jewish grave that you take a rock and you put it onto the
Mm-hmm.
gravestone. And then you say what's called Kaddish. It's a special prayer for the dead. And other passengers were there and they go, how do you know how to do that? Like, how do you know?
Yeah.
How do you know? How can you read Hebrew? I said, well, I'm not reading anything. I know it, right?
Yeah.
And I know the prayer, but other people were fascinated by it. So I think that's another really important part of small ship cruising.
Yeah. You learn from each other and your
Exactly.
cultural connections and traditions, and because that's, have a friend who just came back from a trip through Europe, and she went, you know, her family also, she actually, I can't explain, but she went through all these little villages in Poland, and she went to Auschwitz. She went to all these places that really were her family. And she was able to stand where her grandparents were in this little tiny village. And she even had to go into the cemetery. She had to prove that she was a relative. I mean, this was really ancestral. She came back and we had dinner with her, and she went to the Czech Republic too. And it was 4th of July, and she gave us Czech, Czech, was it Polish or Czech now? Moonshine that she had made. So I thought that was hysterical. But anyway, I think it was Poland actually, yeah. And she couldn't pronounce everything, but this is all very, she showed us all these photos of going through the Jewish ghettos and how people had to live. And she was like, one of the ghettos was 5 rooms that so many people had to live in, and the 5th room they turned into a library because they really knew that they needed to keep their souls going through all this, terror. And yet, I mean, there's probably 20 to 30 people per room in this one apartment hiding, but here's our library. And it was their communal area. And, you could go for a walk down a street and not understand that kind of history and what her family went through if you didn't have that human connection with her, with the understanding. I wasn't on a ship with her, but if I was on the ship with her, I would have known that kind of thing.
Right.
It makes what people went through in history personal, which means that you're not just reading a headline of news, right? You start to understand the perils of war, and it's personal,
Right. Well, that's right. And I mean, coming back to all of that, I mean, in Amsterdam, when we landed in Amsterdam, we had a choice. We could have gone to do a behind the scenes in the red light district, understanding, right? Understanding,
why?
though, the kind of strife that there is in the red light district, or we could have gone to the Anne Frank house. I chose to go to the Anne Frank house, and we walked through the entire house. We walked through the secret passageway. There was a library, and it slid open. It kind of spun open, and we went into all of those secret rooms and the passageways, and that was another very moving experience. And hearing the commentary from other people, from the other guests on our ship, was a very small group. We might have had 12 people on this tour. So you really did understand how they were experiencing visiting the Anne Frank house as well.
So this is something, I mean, that's what I think people don't realize, that on cruises, you're going to have these kind of cultural history, moments. But now the other thing is, did anybody else on the ship go to the red light district? Because I want to know. Because that's the other thing. You get to hear about the excursions you didn't do.
That's right. That's right. And so, I mean, that was really great because other people did go and they talked about that, and they came back onto the ship, and over drinks and dinner, we got to hear about the things that we actually didn't do because we had to make choices. You can only do so much. Right. You have a day and a destination. You've got to figure out what it is that you want to do, but you could hear about it and you could understand what they were experiencing. And it's the same as when we went to that cemetery. I think there were 10 people that chose to go to the cemetery. And I'm so glad that we did. But and when people talked, they said that was probably one of the most moving experiences in their lives to be there.
That's amazing.
To hear the kind of the history, but also what the Dutch have done to adopt the graves. Like somebody actually has the duty to go back and tend to the graves all the time. They commit to going twice a year. And the man that was guiding us, he told us how his daughter already, a young daughter, already has a grave that she looks after. So these are real people experiences. And this is not to take away, like, I think that what the ship did, what both Viking did and Uniworld did, was it gave us the access to go to these places with very experienced and interesting guides.
Oh, that's always,
Along,
to me, that's crucial. The
yeah,
guides are awesome.
yeah, along with the enrichment that was on the ship as well. They
Mm,
explained things. They would bring musicians on and talent on. They would
cool.
take us out at night in certain places in Bucharest or Belgrade. We were able to do an evening experience and go and have dinner in this lively, amazing club district, and then come back to the ship afterwards. So that's what you can do on these river ships. You're close enough. You're
Mm-hmm,
almost, some cases, you're in town, or in
mm-hmm.
a city. In others, you're a very short distance away, but you really max out the experience in each of these places. And if you're anything like me, if I get a taste of a place, of a city, and I really love it, I put it on my
Mm.
I put it on my little list and say, I want to go back here.
Oh, see, I love this because so when you're going on these excursions, they give you like here's the list of things you can choose to do, and they set it up. So again, this is like an easy trip. You don't have to sit and sweat it out like, okay, now I have to call the tour company. I have to try and book something in another language. You know what I mean? So this they
Yep,
make it easy. They already have the partnerships and the contacts, and you just
exactly.
show up, enjoy food and entertainment on board, a wonderful night's sleep, camaraderie, and then get off the ship and go do what's available.
Exactly. So everything is set up. It's very well described in the
Mm-hmm.
material. So you can plan it before you go. You can actually read about all these places, really understand what the shore excursions are all about before you commit. So you have a
Mm-hmm.
very good idea, and you can change it. If you're on the ship and you decide, well, I don't want to do that, I want to do this, you can do that. Um, and but you never know. Like in the Netherlands, when we got to Amsterdam, also, we went to Keukenhof Gardens. I don't know if you've heard of that,
Oh,
but
oh yes.
Keukenhof is where all of the tulips are and all of
Yeah.
the other gorgeous flowers. And it was pouring rain when we arrived. It was a gray
Oh,
pouring rain day. And it was like, I can't believe this. How could this be happening? Well, we got on a bus. We went down to Keukenhof. We went into the beautiful gardens, and we loved it. The weather cleared enough for us to really enjoy it. But even inside the domes, you could appreciate all of the tulips. So,
mm.
I mean, there is something for everybody. My husband, the last thing he ever wanted to do was go and see a garden, right? He like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. He loved it. He loved it. Loved
Oh,
it.
see, but that's the other thing is doing something that you unexpected. That's the other thing, doing that unexpected. I don't think I'm interested in this, and that's why we're the blend because I think everything's connected in some way, right?
Well, yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, in terms of a sailing on the Viking trip on the Danube, we went through
Ooh.
the largest lock on the Danube River, on the entire Danube River. And it's called Iron Gate. It's the Iron
Mm-hmm.
Gate 1 lock. And we cruised. It was an entire day of cruising through, it's called Iron Gate Gorge and the
Mm-hmm.
Iron Gate locks. And I like going through locks. I think it is unbelievable watching. In our case, it was Captain Vladimir taking this ship through, and I have pictures of where I'm leaning over and I'm touching the wall
That's
of the
amazing, isn't
lock.
it?
It is amazing. I can't believe how they can do this, but
Mm.
I really love that. And then cruising through the lock is between Serbia and Romania.
Mm.
There's a massive sculpture of uh, some guy named Daedalus, and with a big beard. I don't know how they did it. I don't know how they carved
Wow.
this in the rocks. I don't even know how tall it was, but it was massive. And then there's monasteries and caves. Fascinating, really
Wow.
fascinating.
That's cool. I mean, the caves, because people lived in caves. I mean, in this country, Canada, I don't know about if you have cliff dwellings and things like that, like we do in the States,
Yeah.
but I mean, Europe, people lived in caves, and
Yes,
in North and the Middle East, they lived in caves too.
that's right. That's right.
So that's cool. And the monasteries to me are like Greece has those monasteries that
Yeah.
is trippy to experience. Like I want to, that's like this mansion on the water.
Well, exactly. So, and there's no shortage. I mean, in most of the cities we went to, towns, not cities, towns that we went to, there are magnificent churches.
Mm,
Magnificent. We went into them. We went into synagogues that were, the United Nations has restored a lot of the synagogues
mm,
and other religious institutions there. So a lot of the synagogues, like in Vidin, in Bulgaria, they had restored one of the synagogues. It's now a community center because these are now synagogues without Jews.
hmm.
There aren't any Jews.
Right.
Okay. But just listening to that and understanding the history, and also going into the palace of Parliament in Bucharest. What a
Okay.
mind
Wow.
blow that is. Hearing about communist, what happened to people, the
Hmm.
structures that were built, the megalomaniacs that ruled, um, and hearing it also from regular people on the streets.
Mm,
We walked into town, and first you see these big buildings of Parliament that are left over from a bygone era, and then you go into the downtown, the old town it's called, and there's great cafes, and it's great walking street, cobblestone streets and restaurants and bars, and life has begun again.
mm.
Life has
This is
begun
cool.
again.
That's the thing. You see how history also repeats, changes, repeats. We go in these cycles, right? And so for you, obviously, the history was a big part of this. The food obviously connected, the cultural,
Yep,
flavors. But now for people who may not be as interested in history, would you think this would still be a good trip for them? These
absolutely.
cruises. Okay.
Oh, absolutely. First of all, because the cruise itself, there were people on the cruise. I talked to them who never left the ship on the Viking Uller, on the Danube. They never left the ship. They were a bit older, and
Okay.
they weren't comfortable to be touring and doing everything else. And I spoke to them. I had dinner with them, and I said, well, how are you enjoying this? And they both said at the same time, they were both doctors,
Uh-huh.
pediatricians, had been pediatricians, and they both said this has been one of our best trips. We've
Because
enjoyed,
there's, I mean,
we've
yeah.
enjoyed all of our meals and time and entertainment and lectures on board. The crew and staff have gone out of their way to make us feel welcome here. We loved watching as we entered each port. We pulled up and we docked, and they just completely enjoyed it. And I said, well, would you do another cruise? Would you do another river cruise? They said, absolutely.
That's awesome. Because you're seeing the scenery. To me, that's just a big portion of it is just being able to and not going by so fast.
That's
That
right.
you can actually take it in, you could look it up, you can learn about, wow, look at that castle or that mission, not mission, monastery, or,
Yeah.
that kind of thing, like that sculpture you're talking about too. Now I'm thinking people were, that I want to look it up now because I'm thinking people were hanging by like ropes or whatever, like mountain climbers doing it, maybe, that kind of
They
thing.
must have been.
So, yeah,
It was
because,
fascinating.
yeah, I mean,
And
not for
this
the faint of
couple,
heart.
were sitting on there's an outdoor deck,
Hmm.
on the front of the Viking ship, and they sat there. They just found a great spot, parked themselves, and watched the world go by.
Mm,
It was so joyful. They were
yeah.
full of joy and full of gratitude for being
Hmm.
there. And
Yeah, and that's cool.
yeah, and so I do think, I mean, the food is wonderful. You don't have to leave. You don't have to eat anywhere else. However, if you feel like having a bite somewhere, you can while you're in touring or after your tours or even in the evening sometimes. And in Brussels, they took us for waffles. They took us downtown, and we had a
Oh,
great time walking around. They did a whole little foodie thing, so we were able to sample, walk around with icing sugar on our faces, and
oh, yes, yes.
of course, right? So I think there's something for everybody. There's something for everybody, and there's something for all ages. So river cruising is not just for old people. Okay.
No.
We saw a lot of young people on both of these cruises. And
That's
I
cool.
think that the demographic is getting younger. I believe that
Well,
it's getting younger.
because you get Wi-Fi. Sometimes it's not so great on ships, but because look at where they are. But you are getting these excursions that, honestly, I think we're living really busy lives,
Right.
and these kinds of excursions are like, or adventures. Um, you don't have to sit and plan everything out for day after day after day. You can get on this amazing trip. You can still work with a travel advisor if you want to find the right one, but you can do your career. Maybe you're running, your family as well. And this would be like a really good escape for, I think, even multi-generational groups, I think, would
Yes.
do this. And you're learning something. So if someone's interested in history, this would be a great trip and they don't have to plan it all,
That's right.
and I mean, also for couples who are celebrating an anniversary or a honeymoon, I see that as like one of those special kind of trips if you're in the younger generation,
Right. Right. Well, I mean, that's absolutely correct. And the multi-gen, we started taking our kids when they were very young on river cruises. We took them when they were really young to Vietnam and Cambodia and Myanmar.
Oh, wow.
We took them to India with us.
Oh, they learned
And
history then. Wow.
they learned not only history, they also learned about other children and how they lived. So we went into the communities. All of it was planned by the cruise lines. All of it was planned. Some of it was panned on some other companies. And our kids immersed. Literally, I know immersed is an overused word, but they truly got to immerse. Okay, they literally drowned in the local communities, and they just couldn't get enough of it. They loved going into the kids' classrooms, dancing with them out on the streets, playing in the playgrounds. And I don't think that's ever been lost on them. They have
Yeah,
their own children now, and I can tell you that both of my kids are already waiting for their kids to be old enough to be able to take them back. And they want us to go back with them.
Well, you've done a lot of family trips.
We
I
have.
follow you on Instagram and everywhere, and your daughter had a cover on the magazine. Remember on your India article? Yeah.
Yes.
So there's, you start to. I think families that travel have, they have the dinner conversations because there's something to talk about, and you see things. So it takes away drama a little bit because of the travel, and you have more empathy for the world, and you're more observant. And that's the thing I see is like, if you've been raised traveling and being in these different cultural experiences, different natural environments, which you've done, in national parks around the world, you kind of have an empathy. You understand when something's happening on the news, you have more understanding of those places, those people, what they're going through, if something's, negative and positive, right? And there's just this observancy that you get. So you have I would love to see a study on how it affects our brains, how travel, I bet you, in life gives you life lessons. In fact, that just gave me an idea for a show. We're gonna have to do that one, life lessons from travel, because it makes you more aware.
I want to be on that show.
You will, because I think it makes you more aware of things in life, and you're not as fearful of things, and I think it's a really good way to learn and expand your arena, basically. It's unsheltered. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And children are just like sponges. When you take them away and you have them walk through a village and they see all these little pigs that are lying with their moms, and then they see one little pig that isn't being fed, they suddenly realize not all things are equal. So that little pig was already off, right? It was whatever.
The little runt. Yeah.
The little runt. Okay. And it really makes an impression on kids watching this. Why? Like, why isn't the mother feeding it? Well,
things happen, and you have to have that discussion, but it's easier to discuss something like, I think I learned about death from watching wildlife kills. A lion taking
Oh,
out, an impala or something, which is gruesome to others. People are like, oh, I can't watch that. But it's actually very fascinating. And so I mean, if you got to see a kill, you considered yourself lucky, and it sounds terrible to people, but it was seeing how nature works and understanding the cycle of life. And it also taught you that, you could be chewing grass if you were the impala, having a nice sunny day, and anything can change in a split second. And that is the same in life. Anything can happen in a
you're
split
right.
second,
You are
right?
so right. And
So
which is
yeah.
the other reason that I will travel as long as I can.
Yeah,
Okay.
us too. I mean, we're on the road full time. We ain't stopping.
No,
It's it's like I know we stopped the tour for 2 years, redoing websites and everything, and now we're doing all that again. But we stopped for 2 years and we made ourselves get an apartment because we thought if we get a house, you're going to start gardening, you're going to start the projects, and you're going to bust out of these walls.
yeah,
It was like a sleep, eat, and work kind of 2 years, but I'm telling you, yeah, you get itchy feet. And we always say, like, once you start to know a place without a map or GPS, it's time to move to the next one.
exactly.
It is.
Exactly.
If you start to know too much of a place. But I like to go back every few years to a place because things will change, but there's always I can't explain it. There's always a feeling in your soul from that place, even if the smells are different or there's just I can't explain it. I call it deja vu dust. It's like you create
Yeah.
your own deja vu.
Yeah. Well, that's true. I mean, I'm already planning. We're going to go back. I mean, I've been to India 5 times, and we're going to go back and we're going to do India. We may even do the Brahmaputra again. We may go
Cool.
and do something in Nagaland or, something that's going to be very, very cool. But, that's one where I'm being drawn back to. We're going to go back to Antarctica for our sixth time to
Wow, see, that's
Antarctica.
amazing. Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's these collection of experiences, you
Yeah,
know.
there are places we loved, and people ask,
Mhm.
they will ask us. I hear my husband answer, and it's like, what is there in Antarctica? Why do you want to go back? Why? And
There's
he just,
penguins.
well, I mean, the penguins are one thing, but he kind of says there's nowhere else on earth like it.
Yeah.
He goes, I am mindful. He goes, you feel alone. You feel so small. You feel so, um, like a speck of dust in this magnificent landscape. And it really works
Hmm.
on you. It works on your
It
emotions.
does.
Okay. It's isolated. There's nobody around. There's nobody to ask you any questions or do anything else. You just take it
Cool.
in. You just take it in. And it's
Hmm.
changing. And someday we probably won't be able to go back there.
Hmm. But I like the fact that, like, with these two European cruises, that you're looking at places and going, oh, this is it's like what we do with media trips. It's like a whirlwind, right? But then you go, oh, I see 10 stories here. I need to come back and
Exactly.
that's the same thing with these cruises. Going to a place, you get a little taste and you're like, oh no, this has to be on that list. Let's make it happen. And in a different way, even if it's another cruise, just so you can go
Right.
do a different activity in the same place you want to go back to.
Right, right. And
Yeah.
there's other places. I've been thinking about different ideas, right? And one of the things that I was thinking about is all these places that I've been to in the past that regrettably I don't think we'll ever be able to go back there. Like visiting Russia, visiting St. Petersburg, right? Doing all of that along the Volga, along the river, and in the Baltic. Like, will we in our lifetimes ever be able to go back and see
Ukraine
that
and
and do that? Ukraine, Myanmar, like
Israel.
Israel, like, will we ever be able to go back and see some of these places? So
You never know.
how grateful am I to have seen them
Hmm.
at a time when there was stability, um, and we got to walk among the people and interact
That's
with the people.
that's how we feel about Kenya. When
Yes,
we were there in the late 70s, mid to late 70s and early 80s, the wildlife was already, compromised. But our storage unit is like majority of Nancy's slides. I mean, tens of thousands of slides of Kenya and the biodiversity. And then you see photos now of it, and people rave, and Nancy and I go, we saw it
Mm,
when you
that's right.
see, you could probably see like for if you have like 10 to 15 animals and birds and everything around a watering hole, I can guarantee you it's probably 50 when we were there, and upward. And Mount Kilimanjaro had more snow. And so you've got to look at all those experiences of the past, because the natural world is changing, and the natural world also changes through war, not just what people are
Exactly.
going through. The natural, plants, animals, habitats all get destroyed. So if you're able to be in a place, like look at the Amazon, but I think things are going to get better down there, hopefully in some restoration. So
Hopefully.
I think it's cool too if you can do trips where you can be part of the revitalizing of something that's gone through something, because
Yes.
then it feels better. Because when things are go sour or south, it's and we just went through, Nancy and I just dodged 4 hurricanes, and we were supposed to be in Asheville during Hurricane Helene, and our friends are displaced and all kind. I mean, and you just sit there going, you want to physically go and you can't even get there, but it's getting back. So we do what we can from what we're good at. You go, okay, so we do podcasts on it, but you I know we're going to go through that of the parkways changed and things have changed, but nature will come back. But if you're part of the fixing of it, your soul is can handle it. Otherwise, you feel guilty. Not guilty. I don't know how to explain it. Just you want to fix it,
Yeah.
and you have
Yeah.
to be part of that. And then you understand, and it's that human connection you're talking about, like from the cruises and going to like the cemeteries and things like that, having those really personal moments. But being part of positive change is always a cool thing.
Yes, and the real value of visiting some of these smaller communities in a respectful way, whether
Yes.
it's in the Arctic in Canada, whether it was in Greenland when we were there on the west coast of Greenland, the small communities that are there, they need us in terms of
Hmm.
tourism, and yet
Yeah.
they don't need us in terms of over tourism.
Yeah. Exactly.
So it's that fine balance that you talk about.
Hmm. Yeah, it is a balance, and I think that's also really nice about the cruising, is that you're light-footed on these are small ship cruises. It's light-footed environmentally, from what I've read and heard from travel writers, especially on these shows with the International Food Wine Travel Writers Association, which we say IFTWA, everyone. But the small ship cruises seem to be very good environmentally, but also a very respectful way of going into a community, because you're working with guides. So this is a well-run thing that is light-footed and positive for the
That's right.
communities you visit,
That's right.
financially positive, and yet not destructive tourism,
Right.
you know?
I mean, certainly the guides that I've had on a lot of these river cruises were really wonderful in terms of actually guiding us in terms of our
Mhm.
behavior, what to do, what not to do, what to say, don't give money, don't be,
Oh, yeah.
and like it's very, very helpful to go in there with on a small ship with a
And
small group of people because you understand. Like
mhm.
don't break the rules.
Exactly. Exactly. That's true. Yeah, don't break the rules, be respectful. Yeah, and it's true about don't what to do with the money.
And what
I
to do
know
with the money because it's easy, people fall for it.
yeah,
And
uh-huh.
it's not a good idea. It
It's
is
like
discouraged.
don't buy the puppies at the border, don't, because
Exactly.
you're making it happen more. Yeah, I remember in Kenya the beggars would, get picked up at the end of the day and go to a mansion, and they have a mansion, and it's a that's a whole other show. But
Well,
anyway, but
yeah,
this is part of the respectful travel that really does put
exactly.
money into the right places. So I
That's
think
right.
that's really good. Well, you're having an awesome time, man. I love it. I love hearing about your adventures, and tell everybody how they can follow you on Instagram. I love following you on there and seeing where you're going. I'm like, man, she never stops.
That's right. Well, my name is Judi Cohen, but I'm better known as Traveling Judi
With one eye.
with one I, with an I on the end and one
Yeah.
L. I'm traveling.
Yes. That's it.
You can follow me there on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Facebook, and on my own website. I'm actually putting all of my stories onto my own website in the press section, and creating my own blog now, and that is travelingjudi.com.
Cool. Everyone go there. And again, it's also linked in the episode notes, and also the link for the International Food Wine Travel Writers Association. You've been a member for a few years now,
yes,
pre-COVID, right?
Yes,
pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID.
Awesome.
Yes. Great organization.
Yeah, they do good. And during COVID, they got busy, man. They didn't stop. They got busy.
That's and awesome. One of the articles that I wrote on the Viking cruise was published in Food Wine Travel magazine.
Yes, their magazine. That's awesome. Yeah, and I think it's IFWTMagazine.com off the top of my head that people can go get. But if you go to IFWTWA.org, you can check that out. And they have a conference every year. Next year is going to be Lafayette, Louisiana. Ooh, I want to go to that. I love Lafayette. Oh, I love Louisiana. You know, I haven't actually done much in Lafayette at all, but I want to. I want to go there. Have you gone to Louisiana?
I've been to Louisiana, not to Lafayette.
Okay.
I've been to New Orleans, which is not Louisiana, right? It's a little piece.
Exactly. And I'm glad you say that, because there's so much to visit and experience. And I always think that every Canadian needs to go to Louisiana. Yeah. Because you have shared culture, you know?
Exactly. So, I mean, I would really like to go down there. Maybe I'll go on the IFWTWA conference.
Yeah. Hey, there you go. Sounds good to me. You're going to have a lot of good food. You could go to the island where they make Tabasco. Is where it comes from, and you can even have Tabasco ice cream.
Wow.
Who knew?
Wow. Who knew?
And you get to go on an airboat and see alligators.
Okay.
That's good. They have a lot of festivals, a lot of music. They've got Zydeco breakfast, brunch with all kinds of cocktails and you know, good food. So I'm saying
like that. Who doesn't like that?
Why aren't we there now?
I don't know. We need to go down there.
I feel like we should go. Okay.
We should.
Sounds good. Well, Judi, it's always a pleasure chatting with you. Thanks for sharing your stories and the deep ones. You know, that's going to sit with you for a long, I don't think you'll get past that. That's special.
Exactly. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio's Food, Wine, and Travel Show, featuring members of the International Food, Wine, Travel Writers Association. We encourage you to visit their website. We say IFWTWA, which is IFWTWA.org. You can also follow us at bigblendradio.com. Happy travels, everyone!